Second thing we want to work on is our grip of the gun. And basically, we're going to start working on that. First, again, one clear gun. I can see a clear chamber, and we have one clear gun. We're going to work on our grip technique. We're going to work on what's simply called to or referred to as a two-handed fist grip. First thing we're going to take advantage of is definitely our beaver tail of the gun. This is the section that comes up on a semi-automatic pistol, and in my opinion, one of the bigger advantages that a semi-automatic has to the revolver is that ledge right there is very effective at controlling recoil. Very important to note that my finger is on the frame of the gun. It is not off the trigger, because that would be off the trigger. That is unacceptable because I can see it through the trigger housing. Finger must be on the frame to the point to where my finger is looking for this witness mark right there on the side. Very, very important to understand that for safety reasons. So, finger on the frame. Second very important thing to note is I am not trying to crush the gun. I'm not trying to grab this thing so tight that I can't stand it. I have a firm grip on the gun, but I'm not trying to crush it because I do not want to impede the control. With time and experience, you learn to grip tighter at the bottom and keep it loose at the top, but that's with experience of shooting. Shaking hands with a lady is a good example, probably, of a good firm grip. Important to keep the seal up high. I see a lot of air gap right there when I see shooters, and of course that negates the advantage of having that beaver tail resting on our hand. So this is incorrect. I want to move that up, and I want to have a good seal on the gun. All right, my thumb is placed high, right thumb is a little higher, and that's to make room right here on the side of the gun. I'm simply going to take my left hand, and I'm going to install the left hand, thumb pointing down range, and I simply lay it right in there to fill that gap. This is called a two-handed fist grip. It's important to notice that the thumb and forefinger are across from each other, with the thumb being a little further ahead. Some shooters prefer it really far out, some shooters prefer it a little bit back, but in my opinion, it needs to be at least as far as the finger. What it affords us to do is it locks our wrist, our supporting hand wrist into place to control the recoil of the gun. This is called a two-handed fist grip. It is very important to understand that you want a grip that is consistent. I don't want to change it up. I don't want to have 2 and 3 different grips. That is going to affect my accuracy downrange. In addition to that, there are witness marks on the side of the gun, or these are the takedown levers on this Glock, so my fingers know where to go. Grabbing the gun the same way every time is paramount. It's essential. I can't have 15 different grips. I simply won't be consistent. So again, you want to know the gun very, very well, even intimately. I want to be able to touch that gun and know where all the controls are in the same place. Another key point to the two-handed fist grip that really makes it work really, really well is the fact that we borrow our we borrow a push-pull technique, where I take my hand, my right fist, and I put it into my hand, and I am pushing. I'm pushing out like I'm punching into my hand. My hand is pulling back. And what this does is it starts really getting a lot of power from our shoulder muscles and our back muscles, shoulder blade muscles, and because we're much stronger from the torso of our body than we are from just our hands and our forearms. Even big strong guys, you know, if they have a certain amount of hand strength, but if they rely on that too much, they're simply just going to get tired. So we really want to borrow this push-pull technique is essential to making the two-handed fist grip work properly. With a good solid grip and very consistent grip, I can manage my follow-up shots. I have no idea how many rounds it's going to take to stop a threat, so I want to be prepared to fire 3, 10, 30, I don't know. But I don't want to be in a position to where I lose control of my gun and can't deal with the recoil of the gun firing. So grip, very, very important. So what we have is a offset or modified isosceles stance, and I have what's called a two-handed fist grip. lots of skin on the gun, lots of control of this gun, okay? Another advantage we're going to use is simply called push-pull, where I'm pushing my hand into this hand and pulling back, which starts to put the shoulder and the back muscles into the gun to help control the recoil. Guns will go bang, they do move around, but what we want to try to do is control that as much as we can. So I simply push the gun out, I'm pushing back and I'm pulling back, and I have acquired sight alignment, and then we take the shot, okay? Grip and stance, let the shot break. Now, sight alignment, front sight, see that? There's a front sight, and then I have the rear window. I'm simply looking for that red front sight to be in my window, and as I push the gun out, I try to raise the gun up a little higher, not down here, because I only have this much room to find a sight. I prefer higher up, and then what we call extension of fire. I run the gun out, find the front sight, and then let the trigger break. Trigger manipulation. This is critical. I think this is the primary function of the gun is definitely understanding the trigger, and I'm going to use my left hand to try to show what it means. I take the slack out of the gun, or take the slack out of the trigger, and then I simply add pressure to the trigger. But my focus is still on that front sight. I stay focused on that front sight, and I simply add pressure to the trigger, add pressure, but my focus still remains on the front sight, and with more pressure, I still stay focused right there, and then the shot will break. Most shooters, novice shooters that I work with, are definitely anticipating the trigger, and what they'll simply do, and I'll watch them, they take the trigger and either slap it, trying to time it, and or anticipating the shot. In other words, they realize the gun is going to fire, so they try to tense up on the gun, and I'll witness that. As a result, I'll see the gun like this, and they'll get real tight because they're thinking about the gun firing, which does mean they're not focused on this. If they're thinking about the gun firing, they're not focused on the front sight. So the second result I'll see is simply that. The gun will come out, and the person will push the gun down, and I will see low shots. So accurate shooting, 101. The four musts, in my opinion, are a good stance, a good firm grip, a nice good seal at the beaver tail, high ready. I prefer higher. You notice the gun's almost under my chin, where I try to keep the gun located. Trigger management, trigger control. As the gun is pushed out, again, this is referred to as extension of fire. My finger will hit the trigger, or the face of the trigger. I take the slack out of the trigger and chase that front sight out. And when I arrive to the end of my punch out, or extension of fire, that trigger will break. What we're working on right now is simply called dry fire practice. This is immensely beneficial. I highly recommend a lot of dry fire. I try to dry fire 2 dry fire rounds for every live round, at least. Dry fire is free, and dry fire will help you manage the trigger, and it also is a great antidote to flinching the gun or pushing the gun down. Is dry fire practice. Way underrated. The more experienced shooters really understand the necessity for dry fire. So we have stance, a good grip, sight alignment, focus on the front sight, and trigger management.